Coming up on the WAC podcast, a big upset at the WAC Baseball Tournament. We'll tell you what happened as Grand Canyon gets ready for the NCAAs, but they didn't win the tournament. We'll tell that story. Also, a WAC Outdoor Track and Field Awards, NCAA qualifiers next week in Eugene. We have quite a few folks from the WAC heading up there. Plus, we have Steve Uryasz, the Vice President for Intercollegiate Athletics at Tarleton State. He'll talk with Kendra coming up on the WAC podcast.
Dun, dun, dun. We'll start this one off by saying if you would have told me on Tuesday of the baseball tournament that Tarleton State would be playing and later winning on Saturday, I would have fallen over, passed out. People would have thought it was heat stroke. They'd have to revive me because I think they blew everyone's minds except for the people inside that clubhouse, because I'm sure they had the belief they could do it. But what a task they had to go through in order to hoist up that trophy.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
The folks in Stephenville, we did our last WAC podcast in Mesa, Arizona.
Yes.
In the booth, if you will. And there was some question about, okay, Tarleton was the 5 seed, so they had to play the Tuesday game, which means they beat Sacramento State. So they advanced to Wednesday, which was basically the double elimination tournament. Byron Anderson, their play-by-play, was also part of our broadcast team and was in communication with him the whole time. And hey, if Tarleton loses, we might have you, stick around to help out with the broadcast. Turns out he wasn't available because Tarleton made it all the way to the championship. If necessary game now, they could have ended it because they were the top team, the undefeated team. But wow, what a run by the Texans. But Division II, they're still doing the transferring from Division II 4-year process. And unfortunately for Tarleton State, not able to go to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's just a big heartbreaker when you think about it, but that's the conditions of it. You have those 4 years where you're ineligible per the NCAA. And so who would have thought that they could make a run? The WAC made it official that transitioning schools could participate in some of these tournaments. All of them. Yeah. Per Commissioner Brian Thornton. That started last year and we've had success. I mean, those transitioning schools have won games and made some runs. And then sure enough, Tarleton State goes all the way. And yeah, I mean, just what an incredible way to end their season. Unfortunately, they can't go, but you can't tip your hat enough to what they're able to accomplish.
Yeah, Fuller Smith, what a job he did. And what his win streak at the WAC baseball tournament, because he was on the staff at Sam Houston. They won their last 4 games. Then he goes to Tarleton. He knows how to win in tournaments and knows how to win in Mesa.
Yeah, he certainly does. And it's funny that he came from Sam Houston and then went to Tarleton State because the two styles of baseball are pretty different. When you looked at Tarleton State, it wasn't like they were blasting home runs. Of course, they might have had a few of those, but they were pretty much doing single bases and then just advancing like 1, 2, 3, and then come across 1, 2, 3. They just hit it right through the gaps of that big Major League Baseball park and just kept tearing down, taking teams down one by one by one by one. And it was so impressive.
Yeah, it really was. And so going back to Tuesday, so Tarleton beat Sacramento State 12-6. So Sacramento State goes home 1 and done. It was a new format this year. UT Arlington played UTRGV in that other matchup, and the Vaqueros oust a UTA. But the Vaqueros had a great pitching performance from Chomlin.
Yeah, Zach Chalman went the entire game, pitched the complete game. So they weren't able to, or they didn't have to go into their bullpen. And when you're starting on Tuesday and hey, if I want to win, I got to end up on Saturday, that saved so many arms and allowed the Vaqueros to have a lot of movement to be able to work with pulling out of their bullpen for the next couple games. And then Chalman was able to cycle his way back through and play as well, or had the opportunity to play if he wanted to.
So both of those teams advanced to Wednesday. UTRGV plays Utah Valley. The Wolverines 12-6, big winners. Eddie Smith, another guy that seems to know how to coach in these baseball tournaments.
Absolutely. They were in the championship last year against Sam Houston. And this year, I mean, they had the power. They led the league in home runs, and it showed certainly in that ball game.
Tarleton State then defeats California Baptist, who had the bye, 5-3. And that's when you started seeing this, singles and just timely hitting and timely pitching and getting big outs and, diving catches when they needed to. And they started to get that belief. So they advanced to Thursday, which was the 4-game day.
Woo!
Nobody at home cares, but yeah, it's a long day in terms of if you're at the ballpark the entire time. and it started with a very long game. Abilene Christian beating Utah Valley 16-7.
I think that was almost a 4-hour
Yes,
game.
it was.
It felt very slow, but credit to Abilene Christian. You know, they haven't always had a lot of success in Mesa. They know they wanted to make it all the way to Saturday. And so they started, the bats got hot and they put up 16 runs on the board. Really hard to beat a team that puts up 16 runs.
Right. And 2 years ago, I believe ACU made it to the championship. Last year, yeah, that wasn't as good, but this year, an outstanding team there with Coach McCarty. Tarleton State then beats Grand Canyon. So those two teams, they had a two-day bye. So Grand Canyon, a top seed, had clinched a couple weeks before the tournament. Tarleton shocks them 4-2. Had a steal of home plate that was the number 2 play on Sports Center.
Yeah, I mean Hunter Smith just steals home on a pitch. Like it was insane, but that's what Tarleton State does. They're like that's gritty, scrappy team. They're going to steal bases and advance the runner. So you're not going to see that big, triples and a whole lot of doubles. They're just going to move the runners and steal when they can. And I mean, to hold off Grand Canyon was pretty incredible. And I think the Lopes came in, they didn't have anything to play for that last series of the regular season. They had already clinched. So head coach Greg Wallace was finding difficult or was finding hard to motivate his guys, hey, we got to come in playing strong to go into this tournament. And I don't know, maybe they just took their foot off the brake going against Tarleton, who had played in 2 games already. And the Texans really showed up.
They did. And they had momentum on their side, nothing to lose playing with house money. California Baptist then played Utah Valley in an elimination game. So Utah Valley, after playing that marathon first game, they dropped down, they play CBU. Lancers play a fantastic game. They win 9-3 to send Utah Valley home.
Finally, the Lancers head coach Gary Adcock told me all we have to do in this tournament is put runs on the board. He said we weren't able to do it last year, and they weren't able to do it in their first game where they lost to Tarleton State. And so their offense got hot. I mean, they had the power to do it. Their first 3 in the batting order were first team all WAC, and they finally showed up and were able to get that big victory.
And it was their first win in the WAC Baseball Tournament because the previous year was the first year they were eligible, and they were 2 in Q, as they say in the biz. Grand Canyon then dropped down. So after losing that tough game to Tarleton, had to play a second game in the nightcap against UTRGV. UTRGV was their first game of the day. Now they had been playing, obviously this is their 3rd day of the tournament. They win 10-9, biggest home run perhaps of the tournament by Vasquez in the 8th inning.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at this one, it seemed like Grand Canyon had the momentum. Top of the 5th, they blast 5 runs across. So they have 9, it's 9-4 at that point. And then UTRGV comes back and said, hey, we're going to respond. We're going to put 4 more across to tie the ball game. Or actually, they were still down by 1. They tied it in the bottom of the 7th. And then, yeah, a no-doubter from Vasquez homers over to left center, and that just sealed the ball game. And UTRGV had all the momentum after that and were able to, continue.
How about Adrian Torres in that game going 5 for 5, the former GCU Lope getting back at his former team?
I mean, no better time to do it because you always wonder, you're going against your former team. The nerves are extra, heavy, and he was able to perform. I talked to his parents and they told me that for Adrian Torres, this was a business game, but he wasn't so much nervous about it. He had a lot of friends on the team, but the parents were like, this one means everything to us. And so, it was exciting to get a chance to speak with them.
So then on Friday, Abilene Christian playing Tarleton, the I-20 battle there in Tarleton, first run rule game of the tournament. They win 11-1.
I mean, this was probably the biggest shocker of just Tarleton State needing to make it through this one, and then they run rule. I mean, that was just momentum. Abilene Christian said, hey, we got to put runs on early because if Tarleton State gets any sort of momentum, they are going to run with it. And that's exactly what happened. Abilene Christian wasn't able to get it done offensively, and the Texans took off.
CBU then playing RGV, and this was an elimination game, and CBU wins that one 15-9, and you started to see that was when we did the in-game interviews. And whenever the coach had the headset on, they had a big inning.
Yeah, everybody wanted to have the headset on pretty much the whole game at that point. I mean, California Baptist just really continued to roll. And credit to UTRGV because every time the Lancers would pull away, the Vaqueros would fight back. But in the end, the Lancers' attack was just too much.
Then they would play for the right for the championship. It was Abilene Christian against California Baptist, the 2 seed against the 4 seed. A great game, winds up being 7-6, and CBU advances to their first ever WAC Baseball Tournament championship.
What was cool about this one is that home run that sealed it for California Baptist was Jake Skipworth. He goes in the lineup for the first time and just blasts that one. And head coach Gary Adcock was, he was like, I don't really get emotional in the dugout, but that's a big one. I mean, this guy had a down year and they slided him into this spot and somehow he's able to make some magic. That's something he'll never forget.
Yeah, and to see the reaction of the team as well. I mean, that Skipworth, was not having the greatest year, and to have that moment for him, you could tell his teammates were really happy as well.
Oh yeah, it was that dugout got absolutely electric after that one.
So then we set up the championship, CBU against Tarleton, and this one, if the Texans win, it's a win and go home, and then if not, we had the if necessary game. CBU comes out, plays a heck of a ball game. They win 8-4.
Yeah, the Lancers knew they wanted this one bad. When they were in the transition period and were actually ineligible to play in the WAC tournament, they had won a couple regular season titles. And so for Coach Adcock, who had been there for 20 years or so, this one meant everything. So his team was fired up.
And we saw a fantastic catch out in right field by Matthew Darr, who came in the night before on Friday. I think it was, maybe it was Thursday. He misjudged a couple of balls in the outfield with the lights.
Yes.
Made up. I mean, and he's a fantastic defensive player. And sometimes that happens. The light gets in your eyes and there's nothing you can do about it. Makes one of the greatest catches we've seen in Mesa. And Adam Young was on the call and he says, folks, you're going to see that on Sports Center tonight. And I said during the break to him, I said, Adam, hey, it's Saturday. That's a great catch, but I don't know if it's going to be on Sports Center. Number 6 play on Sports Center that night.
Hey, the WAC gets recognized for its baseball talents. That was our second time being on Sports Center that week.
And then that forces the if necessary game. And then Tarleton comes out, the Tarleton State Texans, they win 9-1. They just went hammer down from the start. Cole Myers, what a great tournament he had, who winds up being the most outstanding player.
Absolutely. I think he was a second team all WAC selection, and that might have been a chip on his shoulder that he felt like, hey, I needed to be first team, and he proved himself. He was such a ball player during that. He was a big part of every single, game that the Texans were able to win.
And Chris Enriquez, Mason Hammonds, Jordan Andrade coming off the bench, Cooper Shook had an outstanding catch one of the games. Ike Shirey, you did the Mike and Ike reference on him. Just top to bottom, they got contributions from basically every player in their order and the pitching staff.
And my favorite part was when I spoke to Fuller Smith and he took over this past year, so his first year as head coach, and he was like, all these seniors could have transferred with the transfer portal nowadays, but they believed in what Coach Smith was trying to build there, and they stayed. And look, I mean, it paid off. It's a beautiful story. It can bring tears to the eyes.
And in that deciding championship game, they used 4 different pitchers who combined for a 4-hit, 1-run game. Jack Driscoll, a guy who transferred from Sam Houston, had been on that championship team the year before, came over with Coach Fuller Smith. He closed the game out. Grant Garza was a great pitcher throughout. They used him a few times. Parrish Beagle came out, 2 innings, gave up no hits, no runs.
Yeah, I mean, this pitching staff had to go deep. I mean, they played so many games and guys were just coming in, hey, can you get 3 outs from this guy? And everybody stepped up and was able to contribute top to bottom, batting order contributed. And then on the mound, you had so many guys that were able to just tough it out, fight through it, through those long days, many games to be able to get it done.
So congratulations to Tarleton. They win the tournament. However, as Stephen A likes to say, they were not eligible to go to the NCAA Division I tournament. So said ahead of time, if they were to win, it would go to the top seed, which was Grand Canyon, the regular season champions. And so GCU getting the automatic bid from the WAC, and they will be in the Tucson Regional playing against the University of Arizona on Friday. And the good news there is obviously Arizona is a great program, great team. GCU beat them twice this year.
Absolutely. GCU has their number. Of course, it's really tough to beat a team 3 times. Not so much in baseball. You say that a lot in basketball, but baseball can be a different animal. But it is. I mean, these two teams have known each other, so they're gonna have to go back and watch film. But Grand Canyon, if they can show up and play like they had all year to clinch that regular season so early, they could make a run. It could be exciting.
The last time they were in Tucson, they run ruled the Wildcats even. So that's how well GCU was playing at that point. The other 2 teams in that regional, Dallas Baptist and West Virginia. So those 3 teams all in the top 40 RPI. So very tough regional, but hey, not too far away from home. It's only a couple hours, about an hour and a half away from Grand Canyon to Tucson. So not too bad. WAC Outdoor Awards, Outdoor Track and Field Awards were handed out this week as well. Devasier McCartney of Grand Canyon, California Baptist, Greta Katanuskite are the Hercules Tires WAC Outdoor Track and Field Athletes of the Year. Stephen F. Austin's Nathan Capel and UT Arlington's Winnie Kipsang were the Freshman of the Year. Grand Canyon's Tom Flood and Utah Valley's Scott Houle were named Coaches of the Year. So they vote after the Outdoor Track and Field Championship, so the coaches can, take a look at their seasons, and it's more an of the year award as opposed to just the meet. And obviously all those folks well deserving of those awards.
Absolutely. That was a great outdoor track and field championship up in Orem, Utah. You were there. I was at softball, and some of those guys are heading to the NCAAs.
Greta Karanuskite, we saw last year. I believe she finished second at Nationals in the steeple. She comes in with one of the fastest times. She will be in Eugene, Oregon next week, trying to get that national championship. Hayden Harward from Southern Utah on the men's side will also be competing in the steeple. Three folks from Grand Canyon. They have Israel Aloyede, I think that's how he pronounces it. Don't quote me on that. He's in the hammer throw, Jack Hodge in the pole vault, and Casey Tao in the decathlon. Plus, Valentine Soka from California Baptist is going to be in the 10K, and Randon Gray of UTA made the pole vault as well. So quite a few folks from the WAC that will be competing in the Outdoor Track and Field Nationals in Eugene, Oregon.
And that's June 5th through the 8th. So coming up next week, we're looking forward to cheering on those athletes.
We sure will, Kendra. And coming up next, you got a big time interview with the new VP of Athletics with Tarleton State.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. You guys will hear that in just a minute. Comes to Tarleton State with nearly 40 years of collegiate experience. So looking forward to seeing what he's going to do for Tarleton State as this starts the year that they're officially NCAA eligible.
Coming up next
on the WAC Podcast. Stay with us.
University Credit Union has been serving students, employees, and alumni of the university community for more than 70 years. We've got plenty of moves that benefit our members, like the lowest loan rates in the nation guarantee, educational resources, personalized savings and investing advice, and 24/7 online and mobile banking. Plus, our virtual assistant, Royce, is always happy to deliver an assist. University Credit Union, the winning choice. Learn more and join today at ucu.org.
Welcome back to the WAC Podcast. Kendra Sheehan now have a special guest joining us, the VP for Intercollegiate Athletics, Steve Uryasz, in his first year as the Athletic Director of Tarleton State. And it's so good to have you on, as this is an exciting time for Tarleton State, just finishing that 4-year transfer period from Division II to Division I. And so a lot of exciting things in the works in Stephenville. And so first wanted to start off with what brought you to Stephenville and what made you so attracted to this job at Tarleton State?
You know, it's kind of interesting. First of all, Kendra, thanks for having me. Really excited to be in Stephenville at Tarleton State. When you look at the growth that has happened on this campus in a very, very short period of time, and Dr. Hurley has done some amazing things campus-wide, it was interesting. 3 years ago, I have a good friend that works with Tarleton on many construction projects. And he said to me, you're not going to believe what's happening in Stephenville. And if there's ever an opportunity there, it may be one that you want to look at. Well, Lon Reisman, Hall of Fame coach, great athletic director, retires. And I said to myself, what a great opportunity to fulfill a couple of fundamental goals. The first one being, I always wanted to be a Division I athletics director. Number two is that I wanted to do that and finish my career in the state of Texas. So for me, it checked both boxes. But Kendra, more importantly than that, when I got down here and saw everything, when Margie and I came to campus, the growth is unparalleled. Right now, there's more than $500 million worth of construction projects going on our campus, including $125 million events, basketball center. In addition, you've got your health professions facility that's going up. You've got parking garages. You have plans for residence halls. So the growth for me is exciting. And people get tired of me saying it, but I've been on a lot of campuses. You can tell when an institution is growing, and you just simply count the number of cranes that are actually in the sky on campus. And that was exciting because there were two very visible cranes, one working on the event center, the other one on the health professions building. From a Division I standpoint, it's exciting. The group did a beautiful job of working through the transition. The coaches were competitive in all the sports. You saw it this year. We win the WAC championship in men's baseball during a transition year. Yeah, were we disappointed we didn't get in? Sure, absolutely. But we also knew what we signed up for. So we're ready to move on to the next phase and compete at the highest level.
Well, you had mentioned it. I mean, the growth of Stephenville. I've been to Stephenville multiple times over my time at the WAC, and each time, I mean, it just continues to grow. What you've done with your football stadium in that area. Now I'm so excited to see the basketball facility. What are some of your goals year one of more projects you want to add, or just continuing to build on what has already been started there in Stephenville?
Yeah, really, really good foundation here that's already in place. You know, I think if you look at what is the key, what's our number one priority is to build the fundraising side of athletics. So we're in the process of hiring a fundraising staff that'll focus purely on the athletic giving and the structure of that and get it to where we really need to be to compete. That is a top priority for us. Facilities, like I said, are headed in the right direction. We continue to look at ways to enhance our baseball and softball complexes. Basketball's headed in the right direction. Football, a great facility. Looking forward to us kicking off this year. It's fun for us because we've got a week 0 game, August 24th. So there's not very many teams on linear TV that day, and we're one of them. But goal-wise, I think, is to figure out the structure of the department and get the fundraising where it needs to be so that we can be competitive across all of our sports.
You have had plenty of experience working in collegiate athletics, stops at West Virginia, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, Nebraska. How do you hope to use all of that experience and knowledge that you've gained over the course of several years, almost 30, 40 years, to bring that to Tarleton State and bring these visions to life?
You know, I think every school was a little bit different, and you learned something different at each institution. And it's kind of interesting. My career path's a little different than most. I've sat in a lot of different seats in athletics, everything from academics to overseeing fundraising to being a sport administrator. And so you've got kind of a smattering of a lot of different areas, which gives you an expertise. So it's fun for me to come in here and see when people say, hey, how do you think we would approach this? And I can turn around and say, well, in my previous experience, this is the way we addressed it, and this is what we found the best way to approach it. And that's the biggest thing, is that you've come in seeing it. And what I mean by that is that you've seen it at the highest level. And no, we can't do everything at that same level, and I understand that. But everything is scalable. So our goal is to say, what are the 3 to 5 things that we can tweak in this first year to help us grow our athletics department? So we talked about fundraising, we talked about facilities, we want to talk about the overall financial management, but those things that we can really focus on, and it's the experience at those 4 other Division I, Power 5 institutions, if you will, or Power 4, that will help us guide us with some of the decisions that we make in the future.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the best things that have happened in the WAC is allowing those transition schools to be able to compete for conference championships. And over the course of the year, we've seen those transitioning schools have a lot of success. Tarleton State men's basketball made a run. Tarleton State women's basketball won a game, and that was an upset. And then you look at the baseball tournament and the Texans playing on Tuesday, the play-in game, single elimination. I just said it on the podcast earlier. If you would have told me on Tuesday that the Texans were going to play for a championship and then win, I was like, I might have passed out, because, I mean, it's just an incredible run. How do you describe coming in and seeing this team perform the way they did and have to go through that gauntlet of a bracket to be able to do it?
You know, it's funny you said that. The other day I was sitting here with Fuller talking about that week, and unfortunately I wasn't able to be there. And I said, how many games did we play? Well, we played 6 games. And you look at it and you're thinking, statistically, the chance of winning 6 games really hard. Obviously, we didn't win them all. We had a loss in there. But I'm going to tell you, that's probably as gritty a group of student athletes that I've been around. I told them on the other day when I met them when they were coming back from Arizona that I've been to the College World Series with 2 other institutions, but I've never been around a grittier group of kids that want to work and play together to win. And I think part of that, Kendra, is the fact that when you look at a lot of our student athletes, they're incredibly talented, but they maybe weren't recruited at the Power 5 level and those types of things. So they come in with something to prove, and they want to work very, very hard to prove themselves athletically, academically, and they care about each other. And that came through pretty clear. I worried the whole week. I'm thinking 6 ball games in the Arizona heat. At what point are you going to run out of gas? But they never did. And Fuller has been an inspiration, obviously, first-year coach. Love what he's done, love what his assistants have done, and we want to build on that. And that's the type of coach that we want to build around. So whether it's Fuller, whether it's Billy Clyde Gillespie, whether it's Todd Witten, Bill Brock, we want to build our program around coaches that continue to recruit the quality student athletes and compete at the highest level. And they're doing that.
They really are. It's been so impressive over the last 2 years, really, since we've made that decision to have those transitioning schools compete. But now it's like the monkey's off your back. You don't have a ceiling anymore after this past year. It starts this new year, so you're officially NCAA eligible. What does that mean for you guys just in terms of moving forward and also recruiting? I mean, finally, you can recruit and say, look, we don't have an end stop to our season that was mandated by the NCAA before.
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing, because if you look at the success, you mentioned recruiting, for our coaches to be able to go out and recruit student athletes that are willing to compete at this level, knowing that by and large, they're not going to compete for NCAA championships, they're not going to, is quite a testament to not only the coaches, but the student athletes. Moving forward, it's exciting because what we're hearing from kids now is we're building on what you did. We're not having to rebuild. We're not having to come back and say, oh, now we're eligible, so forget the last 4 years. They're sources of pride for us. And so coaches will be able to go out and say, hey, by the way, we won the WAC last year. Now we're eligible to play in the postseason, and we're to be next year what we did this year. You're playing in the NCAA tournament. And that's the key. We now have a completely different selling point that we didn't have before.
And now you have the facilities to also add to that. And I know we had talked a little bit about some of the projects, but when I was there for basketball, that was supposed to be coming up. We're going to have that ready possibly for this new season. Can you give us an update on some of these projects and the timetable on when we can step foot and witness the incredible growth and development over there?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I can look out the window right here and see the event center going up, coming out of the ground. It won't be ready for this coming year, but so we'll spend another year in historic Wisdom Gym. But the year after that, we'll be in there competing. A tremendous venue, really holds about 9,500 people for a concert, about 8,500, 7,500. Have to work on the final numbers for a basketball game, but it's state of the art in every way. And that's really going to help us across the board because just a tremendous venue. It allows us to take Wisdom and commit it to our women's volleyball program, which is key. It allows us to take the old women's volleyball practice facility and game facility and turn it into a state-of-the-art weight room and fitness and cardio area. So we're doing that at the same time. So the dominoes continue to fall here on our campus. And I'm just going to say this, one of the things that's invigorating is having President Hurley because he pushes you. He does push you. He challenges you to do everything you can to continue to succeed. And that's invigorating. And to have a president that's going to come out and say, hey, what do we need to do to compete? That loves athletics, that also loves, obviously, the institution and understands the importance of it. Kendra, you know as well as I do, there's no better way to promote an institution than through a successful athletics department. And so if we can help the institution grow by virtue of being successful in our major sports, that's a winner for all.
Yeah, I think nationally it's been recognized of just how much you guys have been pouring into athletics. What's your relationship with President Hurley that has allowed this? You know, is he a big factor of why you chose Tarleton State and being able to have that same vision? Because it's not always the case. Sometimes the presidents aren't on board with what the athletic director's vision is.
Yeah, and I think that's the big theme from the very beginning when we first started talking about the opportunity was, hey, I'm excited about where athletics is headed. I want to support it. I know the value to the institution, and that's not always the case at every institution. I'm not saying that because I had that at other schools because I always had a lot of support there. But across the country, I've had several athletic directors call and say, man, that guy's big time. That's pretty cool. And it is because it allows us to turn around and grow. Now, on the backside, I can also get out of the car and walk down the road here and see a unbelievable health sciences center. I can see a new residence hall. I can see all the new expansion that's going on at the library. So he has a balance, and that's the key, is that he keeps the focus of the institution, the faculty, the staff at hand, but also helps athletics grow, which is really key.
And now you've been in Stephenville for a little bit of time. Can you let us in on maybe some of your favorite spots, whether it's food, lunch, breakfast, coffee, or anything fun to do in the area that you found?
You know, it's funny. I've been here really almost 60 days. And then the first 30 days, Kendra, Margie wasn't here. So you spent a lot of time trying to figure out where to go and what to do and this and that, and whatever. I also got in trouble during my press conference because I mentioned a restaurant, and somebody was upset that I hadn't mentioned their restaurant. So I'm always a little reticent in doing that, but I got to be honest, from a barbecue standpoint, I don't know that I've had anything better than Hard Eight. I can tell you that while Margie was not here, there was many a night that I was at Hard Eight Barbecue. Probably as good as I've ever had. We've got great restaurant here for breakfast that's kind of been a mainstay for me called Peacock's. So that's been fun. And then, of course, the other thing is you've got your normal stuff. I'll say this, where I came from in West Virginia, there wasn't any good Mexican food.
Okay.
So for me to be back in the heart of Texas has been amazing. And so I've hit them all. And as I tell everybody, you can look at my physique and know that repetition is the key to learning. So I'm going to continue to hit them and continue to learn.
Love that. I have actually been to Hard Eight, and it is truly fabulous. I'll have to try Peacock's next time I'm in town as well.
It's funny because when you look at it, everybody has a food ordering app these days, and the first couple times, you just hustle in there, and next thing you know, people start recognizing and talking with you, and it's just a great place to live. People are very welcoming, caring. They love Tarleton State University. Tarleton drives the economy. When you have 18,000 students, it's a driver. The other thing that's neat is the location, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. We've got 4 kids and 5 grandkids now, all within maximum of 4 hours. So that was a special part of us moving back to this area of the country.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you sharing some insight. First year VP for Intercollegiate Athletics, Steve Uryasz. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of the WAC podcast today.
Absolutely, Kendra. Call anytime. And then when you're out here, you and I'll hit a couple of those restaurants.
Absolutely. Count on it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the WAC podcast. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And check out our website at wacsports.com.